Zoroastrians follow the teachings of Zarathustra, known to the Greeks as Zoroaster. He was an Iranian prophet who lived over 3,500 years ago during the dawn of the Iranian Bronze Age. His philosophical insights influenced renowned thinkers such as Heraclitus and, in turn, Plato. For over a millennium, Zoroastrianism was the dominant faith of the Persian world, upheld by three great empires: the Achaemenid, Parthian, and Sassanid dynasties. Notably, Cyrus the Great, founder of the Achaemenid Empire, issued what is widely regarded as the first human rights charter. Zoroastrianism is the first known living monotheistic religion. Zoroastrians believe in Ahura Mazda, one god, meaning Lord of Wisdom. Hence, fire and light serve as symbols of divine wisdom and enlightenment, integral to Zoroastrian worship. Zarathustra's teachings, preserved in the sacred Gathas, challenged the prevailing social structures, replacing superstition and authoritarian power with principles of truth, order, and personal responsibility. A fundamental tenet of his philosophy is the cosmic struggle between good and evil, a struggle that exists within each individual. Every Zoroastrian is taught to actively choose the path of Asha, which is the divine law that governs both the physical and moral aspects of the universe, ensuring balance and justice. According to Zoroastrianism, humans play an active role in shaping the world through their actions. By adhering to three core principles, good thoughts, good words, and good deeds, one contributes to the betterment of society. Zoroastrian ethics emphasize harmony with nature, advocating for the protection of Ahura Mazda's creations, including the four sacred elements: fire, earth, air, and water. The faith also upholds the fundamental equality of all individuals, recognizing merit through one's actions rather than wealth or status. A distinguishing feature of Zoroastrianism is the emphasis on free will. Every individual is responsible for their own choices. Rewards and consequences are important, but not conceptualized in a physical sense. Instead, Zoroastrians believe that a righteous life leads to fulfillment and peace, while a life guided by wrongful choices results in disorder and strife. Unlike certain religious traditions that anticipate a future savior, Zoroastrianism teaches that individuals must act as their own agents of positive change. Through ethical actions and a commitment to truth and justice, one shapes both personal destiny and the well-being of the wider community. One of the most recognized Zoroastrian symbols is the Frevahar, which represents the divine essence within all individuals and the continuous pursuit of progress. Fire, another central symbol, represents Asha, truth and righteousness, and remains an essential component of religious practice, with fire temples serving as places of worship. The oldest active fire temples are located in Yazd, Iran, and Udvada, India, with many others established globally. Spanning three mighty Persian empires from around 550 BCE to 651 CE, Zoroastrianism helped forge the foundations of global concepts like pluralism, divine kingship, and moral justice. For over 3,000 years, Zoroastrians have upheld their religious traditions despite historical challenges. And today, the Zoroastrian diaspora spans numerous countries and continents, including Iran, India, Pakistan, North America, Europe, and beyond. For further information on Zoroastrianism and its teachings, please visit fazana.org/education. May we all strive to embody good thoughts, good words, and good deeds in our lives.
Manic, you're muted.
Oh, I'm okay, right? Yeah, you can ask questions by going to the react button and raise your hand kind of thing. No questions? Okay. All right. So then, this just gives you a glimpse of, the overview type of thing. Uh, I will give you start with a little bit of a history, of the religion. So, of course, it starts with Prophet Zarathustra, who, as it was said in the video, known as Zoroaster, more commonly known as Zoroaster in the Western world, because the Greeks, wrote a lot of history and Herodotus and all those guys, and they used the name Zoroastres actually in Greek when they kind of shortened to Zoroaster. And so uh, his teachings were way back, almost approximately 4,500, 5,000 years ago. And according to Roman and Greek historians, they put him over 6,000 years ago, and this is supported by archaeologist Mary Settegast in her research. She looks at when did farming get started, because that is one of the things that Prophet Zarathustra mentions in his sacred songs that he composed himself. Uh, he was encouraging the farmer, encouraging people to respect the farmer, take care of him, and so that's why they look at, okay, when did farming start, and so according to some of the scholars, maybe about 4,500, 5,000 years ago. But according to the research from Mary Settegas, and she has written a book called When Spoke Zarathustra. It's kind of a little bit play on the original work of Thus Spoke Zarathustra, right, by Nietzsche. And so after several hundreds of years after Zarathustra passed away, then that religion, which started, in the eastern part of the greater Iran, at one time, one of the editors of Indian magazine called India Currents that I used to talk to because I would contribute some articles, for their magazine, and she was from Afghanistan, and she said that uh, you guys say that Zarathustra was Iranian, but he was an Afghan, so I felt nice about it. Someone else is feeling proud about the Prophet. Well, Afghanistan was in the part of the greater Persian Empire, at one time. So I said that's fine. And so in the Persian Empire, it was uh, the rulers came from the Persian dynasties. So we had Cyrus the Great, who is known as the founder of the Persian Empire. He was a ruler of some small kingdom in the south part of uh, Iran, and so he basically conquers Babylon, you know, and uh, and then on and on he conquers other states, other countries, and that's how he creates a big empire. World is supposed to be the first world empire, so large, all the way from the Mediterranean Sea to the uh, India and China, in the Indus River area. So, so now Cyrus the Great, as you might know, is also the only non-Jewish person that is mentioned in the Hebrew Bible, and he is called as the anointed one, and a savior of the Jews, because when he conquered Babylon, he basically released the Jewish people from captivity, right? And not only that, but he pledged them money to go back to their homeland to repair their broken temple that the Babylonians had broken. So and then after that, there were some Jewish prophets who lived in the Persian Empire, like Isaiah and Daniel. And some part of the Torah was written while they were living in the Persian Empire. So they were exposed to Zarathustri or Zoroastrian beliefs and in one God, etc. So then, after that was the first dynasty was called the Achaemenian dynasty, or the in Iran they call it Hakamoneshi. And and then after they were there from like 6th century BC, 538 BC or something, up to 330 BC, when Alexander came, and basically he started damaging structures. The great structure of Persepolis, which was the place of the capital of the uh, Zoroastrian kings. He kind of set fire to it and all that. And so there was then, although Alexander himself dies, pretty soon after he goes to India to fight the Indians, but his generals, Seleucid, etc., they basically take over and rule the Persian Empire for about 200 years or so. Again, after that, there is a Zoroastrian dynasty called the Parthians or Ashkanians. And the Parthia is a province in the northern part of Iran. And so they basically, again, throw out the Greeks rulers and re-established Zoroastrian rule. They salvage some of the damaged documents, etc. And then after them they are followed by uh, so this after them they are followed by the another dynasty called the Sasanian dynasty. So again, that continues the Zoroastrian rulers, and the way the Zoroastrian rulers ruled was by following Zarathustra's teachings, and not harming civilians, not hurting women, and also basically allowing the local people to continue to worship their own gods, and their own teachings of their, or their own customs, etc. And that's how he was able to, rule such a vast empire, so that he would not have too many unhappy people. If you force people to follow a certain way, that creates a lot of problems. So that's how it continued, and up to the 7th century AD. That was the Zoroastrian rule. The last one was the Sasanian Empire, and but then after that, we had the Arab invasion uh, in 700 something, and uh, and then we started having the setback. So basically, the just like many invaders, they are not exclusive. They started being very brutal. There was some genocide, some lot of destruction of structures, of documents, that were written, etc. But luckily, we were so lucky, because in the ancient time they didn't have written documents, but they used to have oral history, and the priests used to memorize the teachings of Zarathustra and recite it, every day in their prayers. So that survived, and that's why we are very lucky that the 5 sacred songs that were also mentioned in the video, called the Gathas, they were composed by Prophet Zarathustra himself. And in that he talks about, how he starts and all that. So they are written, of course, in the very ancient language called Avesta language. That Avesta language is a very close relative to the old Vedic language, that was like used in the old Rig Veda of the Hindus. And he was a poet, so he writes it in a poetic meter, and so that has survived, and that's what we consider as the main pillars of our religion. Then after during his time, and soon after that, the religion was spread by, there is a book called the Herbedistan, which I've read some translation from it by Professor Almut Hintz, who is a professor in London, does research on Zoroastrianism. And it said that every family was supposed to have at least one child become very knowledgeable about the teachings and teach it to other people, other families. And then each family that joined the Zoroastrian religion, then they have to do the same thing. One of their children at least should learn and spread it to others. So this is how religion was originally spread. Uh, Eventually, after centuries, the religion spread from the eastern part of Iran toward the western part of Iran. Okay, and it so happened that during the Achaemenian dynasty, the first one that Cyrus the Great started, there were some priests from another empire called the Median Empire, Median, and so they basically adopted the religion of Zarathustra, but then also they added some of their own beliefs, and so the religion, the scriptures kind of expanded to have not just the gathas but other scriptures also. And as we will see that later on, that uh, Zarathustra wants people to keep an open mind, to learn, to learn what is the latest, to have the wisdom to see whether the new things are basically following the basic teachings. So there is sometimes new things can violate the basic teachings, right? So that way people were able to include some new things that they learn from other people, out of respect for everyone, that, everyone is getting knowledge from God, same source that creates everything good. Okay. So now, after the Arab invasion, what happened is that the Zoroastrian people, because of all the persecution, discrimination, etc., many of them started moving to remote areas, the desert areas, the mountain areas, etc. And so they stayed in Iran. Whereas some of my ancestors, because I was born and raised in India, so my ancestors who many centuries ago, they decided to migrate to India because we did share some roots, with the ancestors of the Hindus, and so we had some common things, and so that's how they thought that that would be a more hospitable area that would allow us to settle and practice our religion in freedom. So just like the Zoroastrian rulers allowed other people to have, and they had a Christian community, you had a Jewish community, and they had the autonomy to administer their matters, and practice their own religion, etc. So same way in India, the Hindus are very open-minded, and they don't try to force people to become Hindus. And so when we went to the west coast of India, at first it was just a small band, of Zoroastrian that traveled by ship, and a lot of stormy seas and all that. And they uh, went to this, first of all, they settled in one island off the coast of the western India called Diu. That was later on, that Diu island was also occupied by the Portuguese, much, much, much later. But and then they got the courage to go to the mainland, and there they asked the Hindu king for asylum. And so when the Hindu king told them, that, well, I already have so many people, how will I absorb, new people in my kingdom? So the leader of the Zoroastrian group, he was a priest, and he asked for a bowl of milk and some sugar. Okay, and uh, and so he puts that sugar in the milk, and the milk does not overflow, and so he gives that as an example to the king, that just like the sugar added to the milk did not overflow the milk and added sweetness to the milk, so also our community will not cause a problem to your population, and we will contribute to it and make it even grow more. And I think the king was very impressed by that. And he made some conditions as to what conditions, I will allow you to come in. Like, for example, you have to learn to speak the local language, okay? And you have to start wearing uh, the local dress, the clothes, like the other people wear, uh, especially for women, and so that you would not stand out as some foreigners or something. And things like that, And so, of course, our leaders, they accepted the conditions and basically promised to follow that. And he said that, we should not try to convert his people to your religion. And again, that condition was promised. And even to this day, in India, we are very, very sensitive about conversion of others to Zoroastrianism in India. There are some other reasons also. We are a very small minority, and the huge Hindu majority, and also a quite large Muslim, majority, minority, but large one. And we did not want to cause problems, did not want to make them feel that, oh, they are taking our people, and all that. So for that reason, in India, we have been very, very observant about not or discouraging conversion type of thing. So, but of course, when you come out to America and other countries, there is a more open-mindedness, more democratic structure. People can go from one religion to another, no problem. So that's where we kind of stayed in India. We built our temple, and in the beginning they basically worked like farmers, and some common jobs. But over time, especially during the British rule, because we were very open-minded about learning new things, etc., and about learning English, learning English ideas, etc. So we became very much, and also we had the kind of, we were famous for being very honest people, honest and charitable people. So we became ministers in the kingdoms of the Maharajas or the Nawabs, the Hindu Maharajas and Muslim Nawabs, because during British rule, they did not remove the Maharajas and Nawabs. They kept them kind of like a titular title, uh, kind of namesake, so the people feel they are still being ruled by their own kings, But so we became, a kind of intermediaries between the British and the Hindus or Muslims, because of our contacts and education, etc. So that's where we became eventually very prosperous. And then we sent envoy to Iran, to find out what is the condition of our co-religionists in Iran, right? And so, of course, there was a stalwart, very tall, big guy called Manekji Hataria, and he had a dagger in his belt, and he traveled by foot, to Iran, because there were bandits, right, on the road and all that. And he basically uh, found out that, the Zoroastrian community was in a very, very uh, bad, poor situation. They were not allowed medical help. They were not allowed education. Yes, yes, during the Muslim rules. And of course, after the Arabs, we had the Turkish people invaded, and then after the Turks, we had the Mongols. They invaded. All each one after the other. They were more brutal than the others. So so we suffered a lot. And of course, then eventually you had the Shia, rulers that emerged from the Muslim population, and they were also very brutal. They basically not only killed non-Muslims, but even the Muslims who were not Shia. They were Sunnis, right? So, so they were in a very poor condition. And so this gentleman, Manekji, after he observed what he saw, he reported back to the prosperous businessmen type of people, Parsis in India. We are called Parsis in India, which means Persians. So there, then we raise funds, for amelioration of our co-religionists, and we sent him back, and also at the same time we had member of the British Parliament in England who was a Zoroastrian. His name was Dadabhai Navroji, and he used his influence with Queen Victoria at the time and other prominent Zoroastrian to kind of convince the Shah of Iran at that time uh, to remove his name was Nasruddin Shah, to remove the heavy taxation on non-Muslims, especially on Zoroastrians, and so that the Shah Nasruddin, agreed to do that, and then our people, our physicians from India, Zoroastrian, they went over to take care of the medical needs, and with the money they also repaired the temples, etc., that had been broken down. They had our Zoroastrian schools, were established to teach the Zoroastrian religion for children and all that. And and so then, of course, you had after that Nasruddin Shah, you had this very open-minded guy called Reza Shah, Reza Shah, and then his son Muhammad Reza, who was the last Shah of Iran before the Islamic Revolution. They basically, you know, were not very strict about the Islamic practices, and they allowed Zoroastrians to come out, and be educated and work in Iranian enterprises, even set their own business enterprises also. Of course, there was some limitation, like we had one of our Zoroastrians became a deputy minister of the oil uh, department in Iran. He was asked by the Shah that if you become Muslim, you can be a full minister, but he refused to do that. But at least, so many people rose to many prominent positions, had businesses, etc., in Iran, And so at the same time, kind of, we were enjoying prosperity in India as well as in Iran, relative prosperity, in Iran especially. So this is how the population, the Zoroastrians, kind of went about, right? And of course, after the Islamic Revolution, you know what happened. So again, but still, they are not totally wiping us out or anything. As long as we don't try to convert the Muslims, they leave us alone pretty much. So that is a kind of a brief outline of the history of our Zoroastrian community over there. So now we go to uh, and I will be reading from one of the handouts that our California Zoroastrian Center has created. Um, so the pillars of the Zoroastrian religion. The Zoroastrian religion, ancient and historic, but not old and or outdated, is a religious philosophy. It offers a means of good living based on a set of ethical principles and moral standards. It reflects the sublime thinking and enlightened outlook of a highly learned man named Asho Zarathustra, born in the Iranian highlands of the Spentaman Aryan family. He never claimed to be a prophet. His teachings of friendship, honesty, and righteousness were the global messages of progress and good fortune for the entire world. Zarathustra's message does not address or mention a specific race, ethnicity, or nationality. The messages are universal. So he used to have meetings with people who were interested in learning about his teachings, And so anyone was welcome to attend his meetings. And in his meetings, he would basically tell them that, uh, listen to me carefully what I am saying. Then when you go home, you try to meditate on that, or try to understand what I said. If you have questions, ask questions and learn, the meanings, what I was talking about. And each person has the freedom of choice. Okay, so right, so if you don't like some of things that he said, you know, uh, that's fine. You know, you can interpret the religion a little bit differently as long as you follow the basic principles, you know, of honesty, charity, kindness, love, you know, all those nice things that many other religions also have, right? So, so that's how he used to gather people, and according to his own gathas, the sacred songs, um, he basically in the beginning he had a lot of difficulty gaining followers, right? Uh, he's only the first follower he had happened to be his own cousin called Medium Maunga, right? Yeah, and so there were probably a few at a time joining in, but not much success. So he cries out to God, he says, like a friend to a friend, and he considers God as a friend, a friend to a friend. Help me to, in this noble work that you have uh, asked me to go about and teach people how to live so that they will have peace and happiness and harmony in their life, in their society's life, and all that, right? So eventually, the king of Bactria, I think that is part of Afghanistan, that he and his wife, the queen, they basically listen to his teachings, and they are convinced, that this is a good teaching. Uh, and so then they patronize his religion, and so then he was able to get more and more followers. Okay, and that's how the religion got its initial start, right? And of course, then after that, as I mentioned, it went to the western part of Iran, and it became the state religion. Not state religion in the sense, but it was still a kind of almost a secular government, but it was the religion of the majority, and so that's how they were ruling. Okay, so then we go to the Gathas and Avesta. So the Gathas, which are the sacred songs, uh, is the name of the thought-provoking songs of Ashur Zarathustra and that foundation of the Zoroastrian religion. Although other texts eh, reflecting their thoughts, practices, traditions, and how customs have been compiled in the Avesta, the Gathas are the precious uh, jewel of the Avesta. The Gathas are accepted as the only words proclaimed by Ashok himself. Okay. Then we have the symbol of the Pravahar. You must have noticed that there was a mention of the symbol of the Pravahar. It's kind of like a winged bird type of thing. Um that Pravahar is not Aura Mazda. Sometimes people have the wrong impression. Uh, it is a symbol of uplifting progress, evolution, perfection, and bliss for man, based on the three paramount principles of good thoughts, good words, and good deeds, as shown in the three-sectioned wing of the Pravahar and the limitless universe, the large central ring. Of course, you would have to look at that picture of the flower to follow what I'm saying, uh, combined with the essential threads of wisdom, the facial features of Rahar, and love, the smaller ring of devotion, uh, is in trust in the hand of the Pravahar, moving forward and upward looking man toward progress, righteousness, and the blissful destiny. Aura Mazda is the supreme intellect, the creator of the universe, and the lord of life and wisdom. As Ferdowsi, the great Persian epic poet, described Ahura Mazda, with the same words to Shahanshah. In the Shahnameh, which is the Book of Kings. Now, this is an epic that was written during Muslim rule. One of the Muslim rulers wanted that there was a previous description called Khudai Name that was written in prose, but the Muslim king wanted to have someone write it in poetry. So he actually had a contest between the poets, and there was a guy called Firdausi who won that contest. And basically, he spent many years, I think something like 30 years or something, to write that epic poem. It has like 60,000 couplets. Uh, so it's kind of stands like other epics. And in that, he also mentions about Zarathustra and his teaching. Okay. So now there is the word called Bedin. In our community, we have a designation for people who are priests and people who are non-priests. So Bedin is in Avesta is used for someone who is a adherent of Asho Zarathustra. Bedin is a Parsi Persian word meaning bearer of good religion. So din means religion and bear means good. So good religion. And Bedin is the plural form, or Bedinan is the plural form for Bedin. The Bedin's objective should be betterment of the living world. The good religion is a religion of choice, not a mandatory obligation forced on us by a supreme and fearful entity. In another word, the good religion is reflective rather than prescriptive, as many other religions are. Each person can, by his or her own mind, personal preferences, and free will, select what he or she wants to believe in for conducting his or her life. Wisdom is man's means for choosing the right or wrong path for living. That is a quotation from the Gatha. The teachings of Asho Zarathustra. The teachings of Asho Zarathustra are based on ethics, humanism, logic, and goodness, depicted on the three paramount pillars: good thought, good words, and good deeds. The Gathas tell us, there's another quotation, there is one path only, and that is the righteous path. Compliance with it leads to the best way of life. Then we go to the duality and Zoroastrianism. Some people think that we are a duality, but we think it is really monotheistic because we believe in only one God. So let's see what we say. The Gathas tell us that good and evil are the two opposing forces in the world and offer the product of the human mind, often the product of the human mind. Good thoughts or spenta manu is opposed with bad thoughts or angramenu or ariman. These are the philosophical description of man's thinking. They have notified us with the believing in duality or having the two gods in Zoroastrianism. So some people feel we have two gods, right? Ahriman is not a competing supreme entity against Ahura Mazda. Ahura Mazda is the monotheistic supreme creator of the universe. Again, comes from the Gathas. Then we go to Asha, or the world order. These are some of the beliefs that we are talking about. The word Asha is the vision of Zarathustra, means the world order. Asha is based on logical organization of physical laws that govern the entire creation in our universe. As such, there are no superstitions in Zoroastrianism. So we do not believe in superstitions, or rumors or things like that. It should be noted that interfering with this orderly system yields undesirable consequences, damaging the quality of life. A great example is in our times is the environmental pollution. Fortunately, nowadays, scientists and researchers, with their advances in science and technology, have discovered some task, some laws of Asha, and know how to protect man from the catastrophes of man-made events, resulting in mental and natural material losses in the living world. So we basically believe in listening to people who are experts, scientists and people who do research and come up with new information. And so we tend to believe them rather than go to the social media and listen to some non-expert people giving their opinions blindly. So blind faith and superstition, no. Okay. Then we have perfection, the concept of perfection. From the ethical perspective and clear conscience that man has to take steps towards perfection to reach spiritual wholeness. This strategy is based on the concept of evolution. Pravahar symbolizes the ideal of perfection in Zoroastrianism. And there's a couple of quotations. The reward for well-doers is attainment of perfection and spiritual power. Another quotation, only with thinking good and having clear conscience can one can achieve perfection. Now the second section is freedom of thoughts, will, and choice. The most precious gift of Ahura Mazda to man is his rightful freedom. So Ahura Mazda, our creator, does not send us with a particular uh, mandate that this is exactly how you're going to do it. This is exactly, you must not change this or that. He gives us the freedom of choice. And that's why uh, it has the plus advantage that, we can choose the best things, but it also has a little bit negative uh, problem that, people sometimes go and choose the wrong things. Of course, they have the freedom, they are able to do it, but then eventually they face the consequences. So, in Zoroastrian religion, no one has the right to take away the freedom of thoughts, will, and choice from anyone. In the Gathas, Asho Zarathustra has reminded us that man is free to choose the way as he wishes. However, has high hopes for man to use his good mind along with the help of Ahura Mazda to reach the right path and happiness. Human rights. The Zoroastrian religion considers all men and women equal, regardless of creed, ethnicity, race, nationality, religious persuasion, political views, etc. Superior is only the one who follows the path of good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. In Zarathustra's message, one sees that happiness, salvation, and good fortunes have been the desire and the focal points for all peoples of the world, regardless of their backgrounds. The first declaration of human rights in the world's history, issued by Cyrus the Great, a Zoroastrian king of the Achaemenid dynasty in 538 BC, roughly 2,500 years ago. This is when this particular handout was created, was based on the teachings of Asho Zarathustra in equality of men. God has created man free, as a quotation. So Cyrus the Great, they found a clay cylinder sometime in the 1800 something by one of the archaeologists, in Babylon, uh, where uh, and they after they deciphered it, they saw that it was basically Cyrus the Great saying that you know his people are free to do this, free to do that, that people should not harm civilians, people should not harm women, rape them or things like that, right? And so that cylinder was discovered, and that is currently in the British Museum, and it is a copy of that cylinder is also located in the United Nations building. Okay, and is considered by many as the oldest human rights declaration. So that particular cylinder was on a world tour several years ago. I think it was 2013, 14, something like that. And I myself and my daughter, we went to see it at the Getty Museum. You know, my wife, of course, had passed away earlier, so she could not be with us. But that's a great treasure, and uh, kind of a souvenir for Cyrus the Great, that he had that. Okay, the next thing is the value of human status and life. In the Zoroastrian religion, the value of human status is considered to be equal with Ahura Mazda's rank, provided men and women promote righteousness, goodness, and betterment of life. In this belief system, the world is a sacred place and life is a gift of God. Therefore, it is absolutely worthy of protection and preservation to keep the life intact and in good faith. The burning torch of life is to be passed on to the next generations, brighter and shinier than before. And here are a couple of quotations. The ultimate goal of life is to become one with Ahura Mazda. Ahura Mazda is the kind friend and savior of all. Equality of men and women. In Zoroastrian religion, men and women enjoy equal rights. Whenever in the Gathas Ashok Zarathustra speaks to people, he mentions men and women together. In religious writing, there are always references to good men and women. Like in my daily prayers also, when I pray for the good health of everyone, we specifically mention all the men and for women. And it so happened that Zarathustra, when he was living, he points out to he's supposed to have three sons and three daughters. And he points out to his youngest daughter, her name was Pauruchista, as an example of a righteous person. So he doesn't just go to a man, especially because the man is superior or anything like that. So, and today we have women who are also allowed to become priests. In ancient times, there was probably different, but at least today, that's how it is. The happiness and bliss. In the Zoroastrian religion, God created the world to provide happiness. And in the rays of good thoughts, love, and peace, inequality, in tranquility were granted for man's bliss. The foundation of worldwide happiness is summarized in the following hymn of the Gathas. Happiness belongs to the one who brings happiness to others. I was just reading one of our Gathas yesterday because these are some of our holy days. And I read this specific thing in the second Gatha of Ashok Zarathustra, that uh, he is happy who gives happiness to others, brings happiness to others. Darius the Great, a Zoroastrian king of Achaemenian dynasty, depicts his good wishes for all, carved on bas-relief stones of ancient remains of the Persian Empire. Okay, and there are some of the mountains, in Persepolis and other areas, on which high up on the mountains there are these inscriptions by the Zoroastrian rulers. It was very difficult for the invaders to, probably go up all that way to destroy that. So they're still there for people who visit. Kind of thing. in resistance to cruelty and abuse. In the Zoroastrian religion, one must resist evildoers and abusers of power. First, an attempt should be made to approach the abusers with kindness and friendship and direct him to the right path. Otherwise, resistance and fighting the evil is the next course of action to achieve truth and eradicate lies. To promote truth and righteousness, one must resist lies and liars. So, truthfulness was a very important value. Uh, Lying was one of the worst sins. So now, uh, this is in that in Zarathustra's life, he basically tells his people to not to abuse animals, to treat them with kindness, not to neglect their needs for food, etc. And of course, he was promoting the farmer. Renewal, renovation, and recreation. One of the outstanding philosophies of the Zoroastrian religion is renewal, renovation, and recreation of the living world. Regression and non creativity is discouraged and looked down upon in the faith. The quotation is: "We wish to be amongst those who promote the world to progress and development and lead man to achieve righteousness and purity." What about destiny and predestiny? In Ashok Zarathustra's vision, one draws his own destiny by his thoughts, words, and deeds. Men and women do have the freedom of choice, but the consequences of their choices are the logical results of their actions. This is part of Asha and is governed based on the physical laws of action and reaction. Good luck and bad luck are the making of one's deeds, respectively, from the Gatha. Environmental protection. In the Gathas, killing of animals is prohibited. In the Gathas, protection of useful elements of life has been pointed out distinctly. Keeping the environment clean is one's religious duty. The major elements of life, namely air, water, earth, and fire, must be kept clean at all times. Now, I one time when we were sitting in our main lounge, discussing about the present president's slogan of "Make America Great Again," on his hat and all that. So I thought of something. I said, "How about a slogan, Make Earth Great Again?" You know, and this was a time, I think, Earth Week or something. And so one of the ladies sitting there, she says, "Well, my friend or sister or someone makes hats, and she can make a hat for you." So I said, "Well, I can pay for it," but she says, "No, no." And she made a hat for me. And so I quite often, especially when going out, I will put that hat on, and some of the people will ask me about that. And then especially young people, they start talking. It's like an icebreaker. And so we discuss about the importance of recycling and protecting the environment, about all the plastics going in the ocean, etc. So even when I went to India, when I saw my daughter and I had visited last time, uh, and we were on the ocean front, and there were lots of crowds, over there. And I saw a couple of men throwing garbage into the ocean. So right away I told them, you should not do that. Uh, you consider the water as a goddess sometimes, right? And is this what you are going to do? And do you know that eventually your food will come through with plastics in them, and you might get a disease from that? So I really admonished them, and told them to only throw it in the places that are reserved for garbage, kind of thing. So I try to practice as much as possible. And then the final message. The message of Ashok Zarathustra is fulfillment of peace, love, hope, happiness, and optimism. That is it. So this is basically the focus on the teachings of Zarathustra. And as we may have noticed, the focus of the Zarathustra's teachings is on our current world, on our material world. There is mention of afterlife. What happens. That if you are a good person, you go to the house of songs, um, and if you are bad, then you will suffer. But there's not too much detail about what is in heaven and what is in hell. All the but all the focus is in how we should live our life. On this planet Earth. So, do you have some questions for so far? I can go on for some things about rituals and festivals and stuff like that. But are there any questions? Yes, Robert. You have to unmute. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Actually, I was meaning to ask you about what the concept of afterlife and
Right.
the I know it's interesting because you do have the idea of person has to seek perfection, and
Right.
just exactly what does that perfection look like, and if someone passes on into the spirit world, is it still possible after that?
Yes, there is that mention that there are two worlds. There is the material world and the spiritual world. Okay, but just in brief, the prophet teaches us that if you have lived a good life in the material world, and at least trying to achieve perfection, you may not achieve perfection, but at least you try to do that. And then you will uh, go to the better place. And of course, eventually, in our Persian, the word is called beheshta. Beheshta is translated to be in heaven, but the actual literal meaning of beheshta is mean the best.
Mm,
The best consequence, kind of thing. And but yeah, that he doesn't go into any detail about what kind of things are there in the other world and all that. So
hmm Is it still is the it so still during the physical life there is a process of growth trying to attain perfection. Is
right,
that
right,
is
right.
that st is that growth still possible after in the afterlife?
Uh, it is possible, but again, there is no specific detail on that kind of thing.
Okay.
Right, right.
Thank
Because
you.
God the creator, like one of our end or goal is to become one with God.
All right.
uh, and so if we go near God, and if God feels that well, you haven't still become good enough, then it's up to him to choose what he wants to do with us.
Mm,
It is said that the concept of heaven and hell has come about through originally from the Zoroastrian religion, but in the sense that behesht, is the best, whatever is the best kind of thing. Right?
hmm So there isn't any concept of reincarnation, and it's
No,
just
no,
you
no.
have
I mean,
one
there are some.
chance.
Yeah. So just like in many other communities, you have people. We have some people who are very orthodox. Some people who are very reformist. Some people who are believe in reincarnation. But a very small, very small group. In general, we don't believe. We believe that this is the life. And
Mm,
we have to. And that should make us more careful about if we say, okay, well, maybe I'll do it better in next life, in a way, you say, oh, that is a hope for me. But on the other hand, you might become loose about that, won't be serious enough for this life.
hmm
But yeah, so reincarnation is not the majority. Actually, we even have a vegetarian and temperance society, So some of our Zoroastrians are vegetarians, Majority are non-vegetarians, but so yeah, again, freedom of choice, and
mm,
based on your knowledge, learning what is right, what is good for us, and all that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mhm.
Yes, Reverend Albert.
Manicure, I always enjoy hearing from you. I can't understand how more people are not attracted to Zoroastrianism It gives them the free will to do what they want and to be good and to be kind and etc., etc. Everything that you have said, I think, has touched the hearts of the people who are listening. Why don't people listen more?
I know. Yeah, that's right. That's right. And the thing is, that many times people tend to blame religion for the wrong practices that they are performing. Like in some countries, particular religion is practiced in a certain way, and they even kill each other, even from the same religion. And it has happened in the history in Christianity also, right? The Pope used to fight with the other Christians, and they used to kill each other also. In Islam, you are seeing the same thing. Uh, they are forgetting the original words of the prophet. What did Jesus Christ say? He said, "Love one another. Love thy neighbor." Right? He doesn't say only love Christian neighbors or Jewish neighbors. Right? And in Quran also, from what I have learned from listening or reading, is that Prophet Muhammad says there is no compulsion in religion, and so you don't have to become. You see, it so happens that one of his friends was a Zoroastrian priest. There was a Zoroastrian priest called Dastur Dinyar, who used to kind of wander around, like a traveler, world traveler. And so in his travel, one time he even got caught and was made a slave in one community. And then Muhammad, meets him, and basically he becomes a close friend of Muhammad. So he teaches Muhammad about our Zoroastrian concepts, and one of the things is the practice of 5 times prayer, that we have, right? And and so that may have been adopted in Islam also, you know, based on what Muhammad might have learned from this priest, So what he calls this, gives a name to this priest called Salman e Parsi, which means Salman the Persian, you know so because they were close friends and all that. So this is the problem that people, and then people, what happens is they look at what's happening in Iran, for example. How those clergy people are practicing the religion in the name of Islam, in the name of Muhammad, in the name of God. And they are violating the principle that Muhammad gave them. So and same thing happens in other religions. And first of all, so that's why in one of our recent, I attend some other interfaith conferences, and I was asked, how can we promote peace? So I said, here is what one thing I think of is that uh, we know, we learn from listening to other religious people that there are so many common things that we share, right? Common principles, okay? The practices in terms of tradition, language, customs, they may be different, that's because you are in a different geographical area or what have you. But the principles of the religions are very, very similar. And so, what we have to do whenever we hear someone making some negative comment about another religion, we should right away correct them to say, I'm sorry, but have you really studied that religion, before making that negative comment, If you have not, you have no right to make some comment, judgment, that kind of thing. And if we all do that, if we hear that in our family or community or whatever, we have to speak up. Maybe we won't become very popular sometime, but that can promote the feeling of brotherhood, sisterhood, and hopefully mitigate all these things that are happening in the name of religion, right?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other question or comment? Reverend Abigail, do you have any question?
Mm,
I do not. I was furiously taking notes.
Oh,
Yes, I've got my notes right here.
right,
But
right.
I just am so appreciative of your knowledge of your tradition, and because so few people know anything about it. So we're very grateful that you were here today. and were able to share it. It was just so very completely comprehensive. And
Sure.
you're a scholar
Sure.
as well as a wonderfully kind man. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I thank you for attending and sharing your comment. So, if there are no other questions, I will continue more briefly with my little bit of knowledge about our rituals and our festivals. Okay.
Please.
Yeah. Right now it's like about 5 o'clock something, so we have some time. So basically, we we are initiated into our religion at a young age. Like uh, 5 or 7 or 9 or 11, that kind of thing. Usually they use the odd numbers for some reason. Uh, and usually the female child, will be initiated earlier, you know. Uh, and what happens is that we are supposed to take a sacred bath, okay? And where the priest basically stands outside and he prays certain prayers. And then the person who is taking the bath, before he starts the bath, is supposed to take a sip of some consecrated juice, so that like a pomegranate juice is usually taken, kind of thing. It has all symbolic meanings to that. And then they take the bath because we are taught that we have to maintain hygiene and cleanliness, cleanliness of both our body and mind, all that kind of thing. And that's the other thing about the fire, that the fire is not just the physical fire that we use as a symbol to face. We also, there is the mental fire, which removes the darkness of wrong information, wrong knowledge, and so there are several meanings that are there that sometimes people don't realize. So anyway, so the bath is taken, and then they cover you with a little shawl, on the top, and so you go to the if there is like a stage, and we have invited our families and friends to attend this ceremony. Then the priest, our family takes that person, the boy or girl, to the stage, covered with a shawl on top, and so they go and sit in on the stage, and then the priest performs certain ritual prayers, and then he puts on the white cotton shirt, undershirt, uh, onto that person. He basically uh, puts it on that to that, and then we he kind of they do there is a ritual prayer called the kosti. It's a woolen thread that we tie around our waist, and it's like a symbolic of like a soldier, ca- tying his belt, to face the world, and so there is evil to face the evil, to battle with evil, kind of similar concept. So he will then basically stand behind that boy or girl and basically help hold the hands of that person, and while praying that particular Koshti prayer, which is like an affirmation that by this I affirm to be a Zoroastrian Zartushti, and I will follow the teachings of Zarathustra, etc., etc. That kind of thing, and basically tie couple of knots, reef knots, in the front, and then a couple of reef knots in the back. And again, in the front there is a prayer called the Yatha Huvaidyo prayer, which is supposed to be recited every time you tie a knot. And in the back is the Ashem Vahu prayer. So and then the rest of the prayer that is completed, uh, Jasamevange prayer, which means God give me wisdom, and all that. So that's what is the basic part of the ceremony, and then the family comes and puts on the other clothes and the new clothes that they have bought for that boy or girl, and then of course we thank the priests, give them some present gift, type of thing, and we have arranged for some catering for, food and drinks. And at least in the old days, we used to have a physical band, musical band that would perform, live people. Nowadays, I don't know whether they still have that or they have disc jockeys or something like that. But so then everyone enjoys. We have people, enjoy the refreshments, and later on they have the lunch or dinner, depending on. Usually, that initiation is done in the morning. And so it would be the lunch type of thing. So that's a formal initiation into the religion. Okay. Then we have the um, wedding wedding ceremony. Did you have a question or something? No.
I was
Yeah.
going to ask just about that. Zoroastrianism has diminished in the world. Do you promote your son, daughter, whatever, marrying another Zoroastrian? Or is it just to marry a
Yeah. We encourage our son or daughter to marry another Zoroastrian, because from a very practical standpoint, we explain to the young people that, look, already a man and a woman, already we have so many differences of personality and this and that, right? Non-religious things already. So why add another different things, that you would have to then adjust to, or you might eventually fight about or whatever. So from a practical thing, it is better. But nowadays, children, in the old days, there was no question of not following the normal customs, of society, right? Nowadays, girls go to college. In the old days, girls were not allowed to get too much high education, and not allowed to work. The man was supposed to earn a living, right? And so there was less chance of love marriages happening, right? Uh, so marriages were kind of arranged or semi-arranged, like you introduce the boy and girl, and then they choose. The final choice is made by the boy or girl. But it was kind of like that's how I got married, semi-arranged marriage. Although I could have had a love marriage in America, but I decided I'm the eldest son. I have another younger brother and sister, so I should set a good example. So I deliberately asked my mother to have a matchmaker find some eligible bachelorettes, to meet. Okay, and so I went to India. I met some of them. Some of their parents didn't want to send their daughter to America, from India and all that, and some of them may not have. So eventually, I was almost coming back, and I found. And my mother said, Manek, come on, you better get married to this girl. She looks like a good girl. And so I said, okay. And I married. And, and I think that helped because both my younger brother and sister also married Zoroastrians. They were in India at the time. I was in America, right? I had gone to visit at the time. So then, any other question? Okay, then we go to the wedding ritual. So in the wedding ritual again, you do the similar thing. You take the sacred bath, and then after the bath, you uh, go to the stage. Now on the stage, you have uh, witnesses to the wedding, right? So either my father or mother and the bride's father or mother would stand behind them. Okay, the persons who are getting married, they will sit down. There are two chairs on which they will sit down. There is a kind of a cotton thing that is kept between the two, so that that shows that right now, before marriage, they are two separate entities. And so then the priest, asks the approval of both the bridegroom and the bride, as to are you of your own will, uh, want to marry this person and you will love the person and on and on. And they will also ask the witnesses, as to are you in approval of this marriage. If anyone says no, then the marriage cannot happen, the religious marriage, right? Before that, usually the priest, gets the wedding certificate, from the government. So he takes care of that first. And then, of course, I think maybe he does that later on, but that's the other part, But that's how it. And then he does the marriage prayers. He showers blessing on them. There's usually a tray with some rice and flowers. That he every so often he will shower that. I myself did one wedding in Northern California, where a couple insisted. I said, there's already a priest over there, but somehow they had met me before and they really liked me too. It was an interfaith marriage because the man was Zoroastrian. He was a cardiologist, and the woman happened to be from Sweden or Norway or something. So, I had to do the same blessings, just basically throw the rice and flowers every time I utter a particular sentence, thing like that. And then basically the cloth is removed. They can hold their hands, and they are married, So that is the wedding ceremony. Again, same thing. If they have invited a group of people, then they will, have refreshments, dinner. Usually the weddings are done in the evening for some reason, sunset, Maybe it was the king original condition that you should only do marriages, in the after sunset, something. So we followed the promise in India, at least. And so then you come to the funeral ceremony. Okay. So when someone dies, we basically, um, family members, they basically sponge mop the body, clean it, and then put a white cloth over the body, and then uh, a priest will, say certain prayers, um, and uh, and then before the body is taken away for either cremation or for burial, kind of thing. And a lot of times people in India, we have, not everywhere, but in the big city like Bombay, Mumbai, we have a certain place where it's called the Tower of Silence. It's on a hilltop area. In Iran also they used to have that, and that's where the after all the prayers are done, and the people pay their respects to the body. They usually you're not supposed to touch the body, because when a person dies, you have all the bacteria, right? And so that is a uh, environmental or hygienic thing so that you don't get infected by any of the bacteria that is already attacking the dead body. And so then the body is taken away by the special people who are hired to do that. They take it to that Tower of Silence. And it's a huge place. It's also been consecrated, with lots of prayers and all that. And there's all kinds of steps, a whole array of steps. And there's one section for children, one section for women, one section for men, And so they just lay the body down over there. And in the old days, there used to be lots of vultures, hanging up, which is in a forest area in Bombay. And so they would basically, uh, you know, finish off the flesh very quickly. They are very efficient. Like they should be in the DOGE, for efficiency, kind of thing. Uh, so they that nowadays, because of there was some uh, drug called Delphonac or something that they used for animals, that apparently when the vulture ingested that, that created problems. They killed them off, or their fertility was affected, what have you. So right now they have that problem, and many people are nowadays using cremation, kind of thing. So that's what basically is, prayers, cleaning the body, prayers, and then taking the body. And then I myself attended one of the time when my father died, in India. I had gone there. And so when the body is taken away to that place, we actually follow the priest, and we follow two at a time, two pairs, and we have a connection between each other, two people, every two people, they have a connection with a piece of cloth, or something, so that we are all united, and this thing, and they take it over there, and that's it. So those are the. Now we have festivals, we have 6 6 or 7 festivals called Gahambars, and starting with the New Year festival, and then we have the harvest type festival, mid spring, mid summer, midwinter, that kind of thing. So there happens to be like 7 such main festivals where the whole community gets together, and the poor, rich and poor. That was the idea, that the rich and poor get together, and the rich people uh, provide, needed help to the poor people. Okay, so we say a certain number of prayers, thanking God, and there will be offerings of fruits and flowers and all that we offer to God and to His divine creations. Like something like the angels, or archangels, those kind of things, the divinities, and we thank all the divine creations and God, and basically we say certain prayers. I myself regularly attend that at the California Zoroastrian Center, and I participate with the other priests that they have. And then we enjoy the nice food and drink, So, yeah. All right. Any questions? Then I think Hilda will again repeat that little video for people who may have missed it in the beginning. So Hilda, are you there? Yeah. So you can start that video then.
Thank you, Manik.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you so
And
much.
anytime you have questions, feel free to contact us, at the California Zoroastrian Center, or at that the thing that was displayed by Hilda earlier on. Go ahead.
Let's explore one of the world's oldest and most influential religions, Zoroastrianism. Zoroastrians follow the teachings of Zarathustra, known to the Greeks as Zoroaster. He was an Iranian prophet who lived over 3,500 years ago during the dawn of the Iranian Bronze Age. His philosophical insights influenced renowned thinkers such as Heraclitus and, in turn, Plato. For over a millennium, Zoroastrianism was the dominant faith of the Persian world, upheld by 3 great empires, the Achaemenid, Parthian, and Sassanid dynasties. Notably, Cyrus the Great, founder of the Achaemenid Empire, issued what is widely regarded as the first human rights charter. Zoroastrianism is the first known living monotheistic religion. Zoroastrians believe in Ahura Mazda, one god, meaning Lord of Wisdom. Hence, fire and light serve as symbols of divine wisdom and enlightenment, integral to Zoroastrian worship. Zarathustra's teachings, preserved in the sacred Gathas, challenged the prevailing social structures, replacing superstition and authoritarian power with principles of truth, order, and personal responsibility. A fundamental tenet of his philosophy is the cosmic struggle between good and evil, a struggle that exists within each individual. Every Zoroastrian is taught to actively choose the path of Asha, which is the divine law that governs both the physical and moral aspects of the universe, ensuring balance and justice. According to Zoroastrianism, humans play an active role in shaping the world through their actions. By adhering to 3 core principles, good thoughts, good words, and good deeds, one contributes to the betterment of society. Zoroastrian ethics emphasize harmony with nature, advocating for the protection of Ahura Mazda's creations, including the 4 sacred elements: fire, earth, air, and water. The faith also upholds the fundamental equality of all individuals, recognizing merit through one's actions rather than wealth or status. A distinguishing feature of Zoroastrianism is the emphasis on free will. Every individual is responsible for their own choices. Rewards and consequences are important, but not conceptualized in a physical sense. Instead, Zoroastrians believe that a righteous life leads to fulfillment and peace, while a life guided by wrongful choices results in disorder and strife. Unlike certain religious traditions that anticipate a future savior, Zoroastrianism teaches that individuals must act as their own agents of positive change. Through ethical actions and a commitment to truth and justice, one shapes both personal destiny and the well-being of the wider community. One of the most recognized Zoroastrian symbols is the Frevahar, which represents the divine essence within all individuals and the continuous pursuit of progress. Fire, another central symbol, represents Asha, truth and righteousness, and remains an essential component of religious practice, with fire temples serving as places of worship. The oldest active fire temples are located in Yazd, Iran, and Udvada, India, with many others established globally. Spanning three mighty Persian empires from around 550 BCE to 651 CE, Zoroastrianism helped forge the foundations of global concepts like pluralism, divine kingship, and moral justice. For over 3,000 years, Zoroastrians have upheld their religious traditions despite historical challenges. And today, the Zoroastrian diaspora spans numerous countries and continents, including Iran, India, Pakistan, North America, Europe, and beyond. For further information on Zoroastrianism and its teachings, please visit fizana.org/education. May we all strive to embody good thoughts, good words, and good deeds in our lives.
Well, thank you very much for everyone for
Thank you,
attending,
Manik.
and thank you, Hilda, for doing the controlling the Zoom session.
Thank you so much.
Sure. Have a nice evening.
You're welcome. Thank you all.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Hilda.